Well, it's official. The Cardano hard fork has been submitted to the mainnet, and in the next couple days, it's going to be running on the mainnet. So you know exactly what that means. There's going to be a ton of eyes watching what Cardano does, especially coming off the heels of the Ethereum merge, which is successful, but not in terms of its price. So we're going to go over everything in terms of what's happening with Cardano, some very important charts, and some of the actual technical analysis helping us understand what could happen to Cardano's price in terms of an investor, and then from a long-term perspective, what we could see Cardano doing. So to start with some of the important stuff in the beginning, and then we'll get to the technical analysis. So the first thing you guys need to know is that the request for the actual Cardano hard fork has been submitted and it has been approved, which means September 22nd, the hard fork will actually go onto the mainnet, which is a very, very big thing because one, they're on schedule, and two, that means we're just a couple of days away from the actual hard fork hitting the mainnet. And then if we look at the actual timeline and deployment, as you could see here. So what we're actually looking here is that today is September 20th as of making this video, and the hard fork is supposed to hit the mainnet on September 22nd, which is the very big event. But there are two other really important things that we need to understand. And the first thing is that September 27th is going to be the first epoch that takes place with the mainnet hard fork. So really, while we do have September 22nd being the big day, September 27th is going to be the first time that it actually takes place on the first epoch, because the epochs come every single 5 days for Cardano. Now, of course, Charles Hoskinson went on his YouTube and was talking about the Vasil upgrade, some of the big things that we need to really understand, and some of the roadmaps for the future. Now, I've been a very big Cardano fan in the past, and I still am, but I'm still a little hesitant on what we need to see and expect from it, because it seems that like every big upgrade that comes, it seems like the next year is going to be when it really starts to take off. And that's exactly what he said in his YouTube video right over here. He basically talks about 2023 is the main roadmap for Cardano. That's when we're going to see most of the dApps, the DEXs, the lending protocols, a lot of that stuff. So yes, 2022 has been a very rough year for a lot of these protocols, and he also states when the entire market lost over $600 billion due to the Luna collapse. So you can't really be that hard on Luna in terms of, or Cardano in terms of price because of that. But again, it does seem like that for the past couple of years, it seems like we've been promised this, even though some of its competitors have already done what Cardano is doing now. So not bashing it, but just some, criticism that we need to look into. Now, in terms of price, this is going to be an extremely hard one for Cardano, because when we take a look at the Ethereum merge, that was well more anticipated than the Cardano merge because of how big Ethereum was. One of the big things is that when Ethereum merged, one, it went well. Like there were no bugs, there were no big things that really took away from, the developer side. And even though it went well, the price still continued to plummet. So that also has a couple of reasons behind it as to why. Some of it is legislation, the SEC and Gary Gensler saying he's coming after proof of stake coins, which really sent a lot of these proof of stake coins down. But also on top of that, there's just a macro recession looming in the air. So it's really hard for these risk assets to do well. So when you look at this chart, you also have to imagine that this is going to be the same thing for Cardano, even if the community is strong, because it hasn't done so well in the past. Now, I'm not here to just talk bad about Cardano. There are some good things that we need to look at and some important things, because if we really want to understand what's going on, we got to look at some of the data, some of the charts, and understand what's going on behind the curtain. So the first thing is the MV/RV ratio, which is an easy metric to look at for basically anything. But the big thing to really understand is when you see this yellowed out or yellow square, that's when the MV/RV ratio is high, and it also correlates with price, as you could see the green line being price. But whenever it's low and below this point, that is when you have low volume and low price. So what we're seeing is we're starting to see a shift back to the upside for the MV/RV ratio, which could be good for price and Cardano. And one of Cardano's strong suits is that it also has some very good GitHub contributions. In the past, it's always had this, but even right now, in the last month, it is #1, showing that contributions are being made to Cardano and its ecosystem, which means developers are flocking this way, and it's really good for the ecosystem and the growth of dApps and things like that. But there is another chart that we need to look at, because GitHub is basically just where, developers are actually meeting. But when you take a look at the Plutus contracts, developers were at an all-time high, but since then, since the beginning of September, they have been declining. And Plutus is the new basic platform that developers are using to build on top of Cardano's ecosystem. So this could be something very interesting and kind of scary to look at, because if developers are not building on Plutus, which is Cardano's main thing to build on, to build dApps and DEXs and lending protocols, if the developers don't like it or are leaving, or the activity is just drawing down, well, developers are really the number one thing for all of these proof of stake protocols. So this is definitely something to keep in the back of your head. And when we're talking about proof of stake and DeFi, one of the biggest things is total value locked. And of course, this is one of the big criticisms that comes with Cardano. Cardano is 28th and only has $80 million in total value locked. And then you look at some of its competitors and you really have to think and ask yourself, when is it going to be Cardano's time for a lot of these DEXs to actually start building and seeing that money pour into Cardano, especially when you start to look at its competitors like Ethereum and Tron and Binance Smart Chain and a lot of these successful layer 1 protocols. And I mean, you even look at Optimism, and that is something relatively new. It's something more new than Cardano, and it's already got almost $1 billion in total value locked. So that is definitely one criticism I'm seeing in terms of Cardano. We always get told that it's going to be built, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in this. So it's time to actually see some action come from Cardano and not just, the preparation. But when looking at Cardano, some of the big things is that when you look at some of the protocols, the new protocol, the main dominating protocol is MinSwap, which is a DEX on Cardano. And most of these are decentralized exchanges, except for one, which is the AADA, which is a lending protocol. And that actually has a decent amount of total value locked because when you look at it, it has been fairly new. I mean, in the last couple of days, it's had over $350,000 in total value locked. So you can only hope that it's going to continue to go up. But again, we need to see some real numbers flowing in here. And just in case you were wondering, this is kind of their Twitter, this is their pin tweet, this is what they're about and what they are looking to do. So you can definitely go to their Twitter and see a little bit more about them if you go to here. And when we take a look at the number one DEX on Cardano's ecosystem, if you look at the followers, because again, community is a very big thing, it has the largest total value locked, but it also only has 59,000 followers, which when you take a look at its competitors, like something like SundaySwap, it has almost 225,000 followers. And yet that was kind of, I would honestly say, a failed project because of the timing and the bugs and everything that came with, the macro environment and the bear market. So it is something that you definitely need to keep in the back of your mind, but it'll be interesting to see how they do. And again, how the future of all of these continue to get built out. But that's enough talking about the data and the big things happening in the Cardano ecosystem. Now let's talk about the charts and some of the concerns that I have for it right now. So if you look on the daily, if we back out just a little bit, you can see that the very low of 2022 is right around here at 38 cents. And we're really not that far, only 6 cents away, which means it's only around a 15% drop, which honestly, after taking a look at the charts, I honestly can see this happening after the Vasil hard fork. And with what happened with the Ethereum merge, I really have no doubts on it. So another thing is that we are kind of coiling up in this very long downtrend. As you can see, price continuing to make lower highs, and lower highs. Now, one other thing that is a concern to me is that when you look at daily candlesticks, these are kind of an indication of what we did yesterday and where we could be going the next couple of days. When you see something like this, that is a very strong bearish engulfing, not only in the past day, but it engulfed basically the month of September right over here in all this price action and broke below this very strong support, which you could see was tested multiple times. Then that means we could probably fall to the next support, which would be right around here at 42 cents, or honestly even lower at 38 cents. And again, one other thing that I really like to look at is market structure. So this is on the 4 hour, so it's a little bit of a shorter time frame, but what you saw was that you were getting those higher highs and higher lows on market structure, and then we absolutely bombshell to the bottom right here, showing that we are indicating a strong push to the downside for a couple more pushes. And then what you got was kind of like this counter trend line, this mini trend line, this bear flag, so to say. We broke out of it, and then retested it on the backside. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, so we broke below this trend line, this very strong support. We've changed our market structure. Now, how low can we actually go? Well, if we take our Fibonacci, which is a retracement tool, which isn't perfect, but it does help us understand where we could be going. The retracement came back to 0.618, which is the golden ratio. So I kind of have these color coded, but what we could see is we can see a pullback to the green line and maybe even a push to this green line, which means we could get an indication or a drop to 38 to 35 cents on Cardano, if it follows this, which again, this is just speculation on the charts. But one other thing that I think is important is if we look at Cardano versus Ethereum, because when we're talking about proof of stake or layer one, we're talking about competitors. And Ethereum is the Bitcoin of proof of stake coins now that it has finally merged. And why would you want to invest in a coin that is more risky but brings less gains? It just doesn't make sense as an investor. Coming from an objective standpoint, one of the big things that we need to understand is that when this chart is low, Ethereum is doing better. When this chart is high, right around here, that means Cardano is doing much better than Ethereum, which we really haven't seen, because right over here, we kind of dropped, fell in here. We had a couple spikes to the upside, but ever since basically August of 2021, we've only seen downward pressure come from Cardano, which means you'd have better returns from Ethereum and have more safety because it has so much more money. So one of the big things is that obviously this is kind of that reversal zone. Every time ADA and Ethereum come to this point, we do see a reversal, but recently we've been seeing it kind of top out at right around this point. So one of the concerns is that if ADA does do well in the Vasil hard fork, or Ethereum continues to do worse, and we get the chart come up to here, we need to break this, kind of retest, and then continue to go up, because if not, then we're going to repeat history, and we're going to go and fall back down to this point, which basically means you're better off just sticking with Ethereum from an investor standpoint. Now, that's everything I have for the video. If you guys enjoyed the breakdown, if you guys enjoyed that deep dive into Cardano, it helped you prepare for it in terms of an investor standpoint or just educational standpoint, I'd really appreciate if you can comment and like the video down below, and also make sure you subscribe so you can continue to keep updated on these types of videos. And until the next one, I'll see you guys then. Peace.